Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
We're shaking our gree-gree. I've got the bones.
I have a sack.
I have for you today, my dear friend,
Oh, God.
a two-parter.
Yay!
And it's broken into two parts because I created one part out of this, and the deeper that I went, the more that I realized there's more crime here.
Oh, I love it when you find me more crime.
Oh, it is twisty. It is turny. You're going to need your supports. And I'm talking jock strap,
I didn't
bras.
wear a support bra today. I wore a
You
push-up
didn't.
bra,
Yeah,
and this is not going to work out for either of us.
Although it is benefiting me sitting across the
thank
table from you.
Here,
It's
I
lovely.
can tuck them in.
Yeah. You just might want to hold on a couple of times
Okay.
because it is a bumpy ride.
I'm ready for the ride, though.
Oh, so part one, I have named the Rogers family.
All right.
Okay.
These are our victims.
Kind
of?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But that not until part two, if I remember where I cut it off.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's. I'm telling
not
you,
going to ruin it.
it's
This
twisty.
is the Rogers family. Take me to Mr. and Mrs. Rogers' neighborhood.
Rogers family. And actually, it's in Ohio, so that's pretty fitting. I feel like if Mr. Rogers was a place,
It'd probably
It's
be Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah. Nothing's more vanilla than Ohio and Mr. Rogers.
God love a lot of things that came out of Ohio, but driving through it from Michigan to get to
that's
Florida
awful.
is the longest stretch of my life.
That's terrible.
It is awful. Okay. We're going to start here in Wilshire, which is a small rural village located out of Van Wert County,
Okay.
Ohio. The Rogers are Hale and Joan, known as Joe. They are both 36 years old. They have two daughters, 17-year-old Michelle and 14-year-old Christine. I'm sorry, Christy with an E.
Christy.
Yes, I added the N in there.
It's probably
Christy.
Christine or Christina or something formal.
Maybe.
But she's Christy.
So a little bit about the parents, Hal and Joe. They have been dating since high school. They married right after graduation in 1971.
Sweethearts.
Yes, and Joe immediately got pregnant. So Michelle was born February 22nd, 1972.
Okay.
And then Christy followed on October 6th, 1974.
Oh my gosh. That's like my parents so far.
Just such a normal American
Yeah.
family.
High
Yep,
school
absolutely.
sweethearts. Yep. As soon as my mom graduated from high school, boom, I come around about 20 years later. Yeah.
Yes, just a beautiful, beautiful, normal American family.
Okay.
And they even get more normal because Hal is a farmer, a dairy farmer.
Of course he is. He's from Ohio.
Yes, exactly. So Joe, just tell you a little bit about Joe. She was said to be super friendly, really outgoing. She was the extrovert of their relationship.
In my experience, most farmers are more quiet, introverted,
Yes.
and then they marry these women,
Right.
these wives.
Then these women
Us
come along.
loudmouth women get their attention.
I know, farmer's daughter. I understand.
Oh yeah, which don't look that up. It'll take
Don't
you to
Google that,
Just
guys.
be careful which site you click on if you Google farmer's daughter.
Do not Google that. Sorry, and I literally said don't Google that in some sort of demonic
I did
voice.
a moment ago too.
I don't know what's happening. We're drinking these lovely non-alcoholic beverages, but they're like a fruity organic thing, and I'm loving it.
Non-alcoholic social tonic.
Yeah.
So I love that this is like a non-alcoholic alternative to being able to sit and go out for a drink with your
Yes.
friends.
Yep.
One, if you're being healthier. Two, if you're in recovery. So this is super cool.
Yes, they are. There's a lot of brands out there, but these so far are delightful. I'm not going to say their name because they're not paying us to give them a shout out, but look up Nootropics and Social Tonics because I highly recommend them. I really do.
All right.
Anyway, back to the
Back to
regular
regularly
scheduled programming.
in unison.
We usually are, my friend. Okay. So Hal, as you predicted, is the introvert. He is quiet. So what many reports said, though, is that Joe and Hal together, Joe brought out Hal's playful, fun side. So he was naturally introverted and whatnot, but he was super fun around Joe. Like, she just brought the best out in him, you know, which is all any of us can hope from our partners. So he would entertain her, like they would go dancing together and whatnot, things that he ordinarily wouldn't do without her. As for their daughter, Michelle, she was the oldest and she was like her father, introverted.
Okay.
Whereas Christy was outgoing and spunky like her mom. Both of the girls were raised on the dairy farm that was ran by both Hal and Joe. And if you have ever been around a farmer's wife, you know that they have truly, I maintain as a farmer's daughter, the farmer's wife works harder than the farmer does because they typically do all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, all of the wash, all that stuff. But they're also on call to go jump into a tractor, go jump into a truck, go haul things, go to the mill to pick up feed.
Sure.
You name it. They are the farmers, one of the farmer's hands, even if the farmer has staff, which Hal did have staff. But it's a lot of work to be a farmer's wife. Absolutely.
And that's Joe.
And that is Joe. Absolutely. So anyway, both of the girls really loved animals. No surprise. They're raised around them, of course. Christy was a cheerleader. She was popular in school. It was really easy for her to connect with people and make friends. And she was the apple of Hal's eye, it was said. Okay.
Just like her mom.
Mm-hmm. Whereas in Michelle, she was shy. She was more reserved. She was described as being kind of a tomboy. But she had her close-knit group of friends, okay? So she had her close-knit group of friends that she would go and spend time with, and they did the normal teenage things like sneak beer and smoke cigarettes, you know?
God,
just like
yes,
such normal teenage things. And Michelle and her boyfriend, Jeff Freezy, they hadn't been together for very long for the start of this case, but they had known each other since the 7th grade. They were just very described as being inseparable. So she, again, just speaking to this normality of human life for them. As I mentioned before, Hal and Joe Rogers were extremely hardworking. They earned an honest wage through both working in the dairy farm, but also Joe worked nights at Peyton's Northern, which was a distribution center for health and beauty products. She drove the forklift. For them. Yep. And she also worked once in a while on the assembly line. So between her night job, her farming, and being a mom, she didn't sleep a lot.
No,
right?
It doesn't sound like it.
No. I saw one report that described her as being really overworked and exhausted, but she did her best to stay upbeat and positive for her family.
Okay. And that makes sense. Think of all of the farmers or the dairy farms locally around here where somebody has the quote unquote outside job or real job, something to bring in consistent money because, you know, with farming, you're going to get paid a whole bunch during certain times of year like harvest or slaughter. And the rest of the time you're just spending money.
Yes. It's costing you money to operate. And being a milk farmer, dairy farmer, that produces a lot of milk, they're at the mercy of milk prices.
Right.
To determine what their profits are.
You got it. If you go to the store and have to pay $3.25 a jug, then they're having no problem paying bills that month. Right. But when you're buying your milk for $1.25, they're struggling.
Actually, just last week, my mom mentioned that the milk at Walmart was $1.29.
It was really cheap.
So anyway, when Joe would return from her night shift, the other thing I wanted to point out, a lot of times another person worked outside of the home. For my parents, both of them had a job outside of the home, but on top of the farm. But a lot of that reason is health insurance. And so it did make me wonder if maybe Joe had that night job because it offered benefits of health insurance for them and the girls.
Okay. Yeah. I forgot for a minute about insurance.
Right. And this case actually takes place in 1989. So yeah, it's just kind of got me thinking. Now, as I mentioned with the dairy farm, they did have a full staff which also costs money, of course,
It
you know. But one of the staff was Hal's brother, Joan Rogers, and he lived on the family property in a trailer, also very common, and worked on the farm as well. John Roberts was basically known around the town as being kind of different, a little bit strange. He often wore army fatigues for like no other reason than just to wear them.
He wasn't in the military?
No. And he would tell people that he went on several missions with the Secret Service and the CIA, and there's no evidence to support that that's true.
So he's really off.
So I'm going to take you to 1989, and since 1986, it's been a rough several years for the Rogers family. They had been dealing with information that John was a very dangerous man, and how they came to this conclusion was because police arrived in 1986 to John's trailer on their property one night to arrest him for the rape of his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, John and his ex-girlfriend had recently broken up, and when they broke up, she did have to stay. She chose to stay in the trailer simply out of survival because she had to take time to find another place to live.
We see it all the time.
Absolutely.
Especially in domestic violence cases.
Well, while they were broken up but still had to live together, as she had not moved out yet, she reported that when she returned to the trailer one evening, she was ambushed by a man wearing a mask who handcuffed her and put a blindfold over her eyes. All right. She said that it really was not that difficult to identify the man because he spoke. And the voice was John.
She lived with him.
Yes. She could recognize his voice. He threatened her with a knife, and in order to stop her from crying out for help, sexually assaulted her. And he also videotaped the entire ordeal.
Okay.
So, of course, she goes to the police.
Good.
But also lets them know there is a videotape. A videotape.
She knows she's being taped.
She knew. Yeah, it's a camcorder. It's 1986. It's a big old camcorder. There's
Set
no
up.
hiding it. Yep. It's on a tripod probably, Megan. Right? So
It is. You're right. I can picture it right now.
Right. The police they obtained a warrant to search John Rogers' trailer. And not only did they find the video that the woman said they would find that was created, they also discovered pictures of a nude and blindfolded.
Blindfolded.
I forgot to write the word folded in my notes.
Okay,
so
but
just
we
to
know.
be clear, blindfolded, a nude and blindfolded teenage girl,
Oh, no.
along with audio tapes of the same girl screaming and pleading to be left alone. And unfortunately, the girl in the
niece.
audio and the pictures is John's niece, which was Hal and Joe's daughter, Michelle.
The oldest one.
The oldest.
The introvert, the quiet one.
Yes. And it turns out at this time, so this is 1986 that they find this out, and it had been happening since Michelle was 14.
Okay. So this wasn't a ambush, you don't know who I am, rape with Michelle. This was consistent child molestation.
Absolutely. When Hal and Joe would have John look after the girls while they went to go do farming things. You know, they would have to go pick up, run errands. I mean, all of those just busy life parenting things. But it's, you know, almost double time when you're talking about trying to work multiple jobs and run a farm, right? So, of course, just to say they're extremely distraught is such an understatement. You know, they felt a lot of guilt for themselves. How could this have been happening under their noses? Why didn't Michelle tell them? You know, how did he get away with it for so long? All of those things that parents go through when they're trying to understand. And they realized that John would routinely threaten Michelle that he would kill her
Right.
If she told anyone, he would kill her, he would kill her parents, all of those common fear tactics that a child predator puts into a child's mind.
This is why kids don't tell.
Yes, absolutely. So I did like this quote from Hal, and I wanted to put it in because I just think that any of our parents listening, and you don't even have to be a parent to feel this way, but you can resonate with this statement. He said, quote, "If I'd known, I'd have oh my God.
You ruined it.
I did. Let me try that again. If I had known, I'd have killed the son of a bitch to start with."
You got it.
Right.
I
get that. We don't condone murder, but
we don't,
boy,
but,
do I understand
but making
his feelings.
Making the statement and the feeling is one that I have heard hundreds of parents express in those situations when they find out.
Now, to add to the menagerie of complications, since this is a family member that's going on here, Hal and John's mother, Irene Rogers, sided with John over her granddaughter.
Like it didn't happen?
Yes.
Roll tape, Grandma.
Well, she would tell people around town that Michelle was lying about the whole thing, despite the evidence that you just mentioned. And of course, Hal is livid about this and makes the decision to cut his mom out of his life, which I totally understand.
Me too. You have to do that with toxic families sometimes, especially toxic family that supports the molestation of minors.
Correct.
It's not safe.
Not surprisingly, John denied the whole thing, claiming that he had been set up.
By a 14-year-old? By a teenager?
How do you
who blindfolded herself?
You set up the camera. Like, how are you set up? The audio tapes. I guess he's trying to insinuate that him and his girlfriend were still together and they were sexy videoing
so
each
the video
other.
was up all the time because they sexy videoed.
Yeah, and that the audio. But here's what I don't understand about him saying that he was set up from the audio tapes from Michelle, because his voice is heard on those recordings as well.
Right.
So, sorry, sir, did she tell you guys were playing a game?
No. And he kept them, and they were found in his trailer.
Correct.
Because he was the one using them.
Exactly.
No one's going to believe that crap, other than apparently his mom.
Well, that was my next sentence. No one bought it except his mother.
Yeah. This is not Take Two experts.
No, it definitely doesn't. He ended up being sentenced for this crime 7 to 25 years in prison for the rape of his ex-girlfriend. And the charges brought against him for Michelle's case, however, were dropped because she refused to testify.
Okay.
Ugh.
That happens.
I know. Now, Michelle was determined to live her normal life, okay? She was going to school. Like I mentioned earlier, she had a boyfriend that she was really connected with. She's going to parties. She chose not to testify because she wanted that normalcy. She just wanted to move on with her life. She did not want to deal with the stress and trauma of lawyers in the court system, and especially in that time.
I know. You're not saying anything I haven't heard 1,000 times and had to deal with
when
I had victims that wouldn't testify, and it breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. You totally understand why.
Absolutely.
And what they're going to have to go through.
You can see both sides.
I don't know how I would feel about it, but at the same time, trying to bring justice in those situations when it can't be done. Mm-hmm. And then later, it just sucks, because then when things happen later, they're like, oh, he did this? How come he was never held accountable? And you don't want to victim blame.
Of course not.
But you have to say, we didn't have the evidence to be able to convict him.
Yes, exactly. And evidence like that, can I ask you this as a judge, though? When you have evidence like that of the audio tape, do you need the victim's testimony this day and age?
I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, there's a right to confrontation. However, there are motions that can be made now to have certain things come in, statements to police officers, those type of things. In order for the video to come in, though, it's going to have to be authenticated. You have to get it in through someone. Okay. Someone has to identify, even though it seems obvious, that this is what it depicts to be. I am the person, or that is the person that is. It could be her dad even.
I was gonna say, could her parents have done that?
That is my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, but and because she's a minor, I don't think you would have. Consent doesn't matter. So it didn't matter if it was consensual. It didn't matter if he was quote unquote set up, unless he was forcibly raped. He had no business having sex, and I'm using that in quotes because we know it's an assault.
Exactly.
But the defense is trying to say it's sex.
With a 14-year-old.
Correct.
Right.
So at the very minimum, they should have been able to get him for statutory.
Okay.
And I do believe that information could have come in. You wouldn't necessarily have needed her.
Right.
But when a material witness is absent in a trial like that or refuses, there's jury instructions that say that they can take her absence as it being negative to the prosecution.
I got ya. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did wonder if another reason why the prosecution was just like, no, we're just going to drop this because he was serving the 7 to 25. But I thought, God, 7 is not that long.
It's not, but I hate to tell you this. On a first time CSC with a minor, he probably would have been, and if they happened and they were charged all around the same time, he wouldn't have had any priors. All of his history on his PSI, on his pre-sentence investigation would have been the same. He probably would have had about the same recommended sentence because even though you are convicted of a quote unquote life offense or a 20-year felony, when you get your sentencing recommendations for the guidelines, it might recommend 24 months to 5 years. It might, recommend 7 years to 10 years.
And they might have
it's scored.
Issued
Ours
that,
are scored here.
Okay, but they might have issued that concurrently instead of consecutively.
Correct.
Okay.
In most cases, that's almost like it would be a grounds to appeal for sure if it wasn't. There are certain things that are consecutive by statute, like firearm offenses. If you get convicted of using a firearm during the commission of a felony, any felony, you have that mandatory time that you have to serve after you've served your other sentence.
Oh, okay.
2 years usually.
God, it's just a shame we don't have that for sex crimes too.
That you'd have to serve, they'd have to be served consecutively with different victims, maybe,
right?
Or
right,
I
yeah, with
even
minors, or
know,
truly like in rape situations, right? Like
for sure,
with minors, or even, oh gosh, yeah, that's interesting. That if you use a gun, we're going to hold you accountable to the law, but using your sex organ,
well, that's what makes you right. One's a dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
And we won't even get into the comments regarding, obviously John wasn't working with a dangerous weapon.
Obviously not.
I mean, any man who has to resort to that level of sickness and deviance is not dealing with a loaded weapon.
No. Maybe BBs. Remember our BB nuts case?
Maybe. Maybe one of them beanbag guns.
Right. Oh, yeah. I forgot about those. Good times. Okay. So, of the 4 family members, the consensus really is that Hal had the biggest problem getting over this. He struggled the most with the depression of it, with the guilt.
Charnell's daddies want to protect their daughters.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he was said to have fallen into a depression and just couldn't stop the reoccurring thoughts of how his own brother, because remember, in Hal's position, guys, he's been betrayed by his brother, his daughter has been hurt, and his mother.
Yeah, he lost his family.
He did. This is a shock for him. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that this is not a case where I'm taking you to where the dad does anything to, on his own life or anything like that. I just wanted everybody to know that it was very obvious that of everybody, he struggled the most, but I understood why. Now, in 1989, for the first time in their lives, Joe, Michelle, and Christy were going to leave Ohio for a vacation.
So just the girls?
Just the girls. Hal was staying behind with the farm.
It happens.
Well, and I'll tell you as a farmer's daughter that the numerous times that I begged to be taken on vacation, the response that I got, because we always had livestock, was, I truly can't count on somebody else to come and feed the animals when they should. Also, if another farmer could possibly have a disease on their farm, they could spread it to your farm. There goes your money.
Right.
Your animals die, there goes your income, right? So it really does take a lot of people. And I know they had staff, but I'm not sure how many staff Hal had after this situation around his daughters anymore. So needless to say, though, the girls are ecstatic because their girls' trip for the first time, all the frick over the place. All right. They were planning on, they're going to Florida.
Okay.
But while there, they were planning on going to MGM Studios, going to the Jacksonville Zoo, SeaWorld, all of the hot major tourist attractions. The girls wanted to hit them all. Okay. So they were planning on leaving on May 26th, 1989. They were going to drive the 1,000 miles to Florida, where they would spend a week sightseeing. Okay. So John knows thereabouts of when they're going to be expected home. All right. They set off on May 26th, 1989 around noon. Joe had been working at Peyton's Northern the night before and spent the morning sleeping. And then they hopped into her light blue 1986 Oldsmobile Cutlass.
All right.
And
you can fit some luggage in that car.
Absolutely. They drove south on I-75.
Done it 100 times.
Through Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Georgia.
Then they went to Georgia. Yes. We do know that in Georgia, they checked into a hotel that night. They slept. They woke up early to complete the second leg of the journey. If you don't know, it's a 2-day drive for us to get to Florida.
Yeah, I usually kill myself the first day and drive like to the northern part of Florida, southern part of Georgia, and then the next day you only have a few hours depending on where you're driving.
That's exactly what we do. We drive 17 hours and then just a few the next day.
Yep. After you're ready to kill each other in the car. I can picture it now.
Yep.
But they're having fun. It's these 3 girls. It's mom and her 2 teenage daughters. And
exactly. Michelle is 17 at this point in time. Christy's 15. Mom's 36. Like, just having a wonderful
they're
time.
young and having fun. I can hear it now.
Yep. So after they drove through Georgia and arrived in Florida, their first stop was the Jacksonville Zoo. And they had no problems for the next 4 days. They were sightseeing, they're driving, they're checking into their motels for the night, they're calling dad, they're doing all of the normal things, okay? On Monday, the 29th, Joe wrote a postcard. Remember those?
I do.
I sent some.
I loved getting them, and I loved sending. Everywhere I went, I bought a postcard. On every family vacation, anything.
Still think we should. Like, if
they still sell them.
They do, and I need to make more of a conscious effort to do it. I have to tell you, these new tropics things, holy shit, there is no alcohol in this.
None.
But I am feeling the float that they're saying you're going to feel.
I feel good.
I'm relaxed, but my tongue is too relaxed.
I have black floaties and everything. There's got to be something else in this. I'm going to give myself a 12-panel drug test tomorrow at work and see if I come up positive for anything.
Tell me.
I'm a little worried.
It is really interesting. It's all organic. It's a very interesting experience on air for all of our listeners right now.
You're welcome.
Woo.
These people need to sponsor our podcast.
They absolutely do. I will write them and tell them.
We'll drink one every single time.
Sure
we're
will,
on air.
and not even hurt my liver.
That's right.
It's non-alcoholic. Okay, Monday, the 29th, Joe wrote a postcard to Hal telling him how the girls, actually her words were, the girls are dragging her everywhere because Joe really wanted to do a beach vacation and the girls wanted to see all the things.
I'm with Joe.
Yeah, me
I
too.
would have wanted to drag my girls to the beach. My mom was so lucky because and we were about those age ranges.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to do a couple of the things. Like I loved Disney World and stuff like that, especially. But given the option, my sister and I, we would have gone to the beach.
Yep. Yeah. I think she did get some. There are pictures.
Yeah.
And so
but she
definitely got sun because we can see her sunburned in a picture.
Aww.
But yeah. And so on Thursday, June 1st, they left Orlando. They headed for Tampa, where they planned to go to Busch Gardens.
Yes.
Okay, another theme park
Ride some
day.
roller coasters.
Once they arrived in Tampa, they got lost looking for their hotel, which they were planning on staying at the Days Inn at Rocky Point. And we know that at some point in time, Joe pulled over to look at the map. All right. Which was on a brochure that she had picked up with tourist information about Clearwater Beach. All right. And we know this.
I know that area.
We know this because of evidence that's later found. So at this point, I'm going to tell you that this is all police speculation as to the
God.
actual details, but what we know is that she likely pulled over, and then a man approached the vehicle who likely saw their Ohio license plates and started this as a conversation point, used this as a conversation starting point, and asked them if they're lost, do you need any help, that kind of thing. We know for certain because of evidence that this man wrote on the Clearwater Beach brochure that she was looking at that had that map directions to the Days Inn hotel that she was looking for.
Okay.
All right.
So he helped her.
He did. And then he made them an offer. Would they like to come out on his boat that evening to watch the sunset?
Oh, no. It's the 80s. Do we believe in stranger danger in the late 80s?
And this guy's a good-looking guy. No, we don't.
Okay.
He seemed friendly and helpful.
And they're
right?
just farmers from the Midwest. I mean, I'm so naive. They've never traveled before, and some person who seems lovely asked to take them out.
I have a boat. You want to go see the sunset? For all we know, this is their first time seeing the ocean.
I bet it was.
So, yeah, I'd love to see the sunset from the ocean. And you were helpful enough to draw me directions on my map or write me directions on my map to my hotel. Like, you look like a clean-cut, normal-looking dude for 1989. Yeah. All right.
Don Johnson.
He was.
Miami Vice.
I absolutely
That's what
hate
I'm
saying this,
picturing.
and it catches up to him because later in life he's totally unattractive.
Okay.
But in his younger form.
This guy's a nice looking guy.
Yeah, he's got a clean-cut chin, just like
Square jaw.
square jaw. Yeah.
Ladies are a sucker for a square jaw.
But yeah, I get that. I know. One of my middle sons, real squared in the jaw, and then the other one has
the ladies are
dimples.
gonna
And I'm
love
like,
that.
oh, this is
That's
a
why
problem.
everybody likes Matt Rife right
It's a
now.
problem.
That's
I
a-
know.
that's
You're
a
right.
square jaw.
No one's looking at those abs. I'm looking at that jaw.
His face, man. He's just too pretty to be real. He's like a blow-up doll or something. There you go, Matt Rife.
Like a
Matt Rife
blow-up
blow-up
doll.
dolls. They'll probably sell them at
There's
Walmart.
your $1 billion idea.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not going to look like that forever, sir.
Sure aren't. Nope. Okay. So of course, the girls hear him extend this invitation. They're excited. So they're telling their mom,
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
I want to go.
Yep. And he wrote down and told them, how to get to the boat launch. Once there, look out for a black and white boat. And he added that in his little notes too. Black and white. Actually, I shouldn't say he added it. This information was written in Joe's handwriting.
Okay.
Joe is writing directions to this boat launch and writes, black and white, blue and white boat. Mm-hmm. So then they likely thanked each other, went on their way. Here we go. We know that the girls checked into the Days Inn.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yep,
So they
did.
check in.
They check in around 12:30 p.m. And Joe had actually written down those directions that he had given her on some Days Inn stationery. So
she rewrote them.
Yep, she had scribbled and then rewrote them on this motel stationery. Okay. We know that they ate dinner at the restaurant that was attached to the hotel that evening. They were spotted by another patron, a businessman from Texas that was in for a conference in Tampa. He ate his meal alone, and he remembers Michelle because she was super kind, and she said hello to him as they passed their
We're
table.
Midwesterners, people. We
Yes.
say hello to. We never met a
Everyone.
stranger.
We have not. No, I will ask people how they're doing. Like
Yeah.
if they acknowledge me and say hi, I'll say
smile.
hi. Yeah, hi. How are
How's your
you?
day? Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
right there with you.
Yeah. So we know that they left the hotel restaurant after finishing their meal at about 7:30 p.m., which would be right before sunset. We know that they went back to their room briefly because when they were in their room, they took some photos. And there's a photo of Michelle in white shorts and a blue bikini top sitting on the ground. She was sunburned, looking into the camera. It's a really cute picture. It's actually reminded me so much of like a picture that my kids would take of me. Like, I'm not expecting you to take my picture, but you just sniped a picture of me. That's kind of what it looks like. It was probably Joe, like, oh,
Snap the picture
snapping a picture.
with the actual camera.
Mhm.
No cell phones.
Correct.
Was it a Polaroid?
Trying trying to think. No, it seemed as though it was a
regular developed picture.
Developed, yep. The other photo that was on the camera was the view of Tampa Bay from their balcony. And so they can see that it is just before sunset. And the boat launch is not far from this hotel.
Okay.
So we can use deductive reasoning to say that they left that hotel right after taking those pictures.
Did anybody see him leave or saw the car leave?
Not that I could find.
Well,
No.
was the car found at the hotel?
No.
So they left because the
they
car
did.
wasn't there.
They
So
did.
we know
Absolutely. Yep. And so they got in the car. They drive the mile to the boat launch to meet their new acquaintance. Now, I will introduce the new acquaintance.
He doesn't need a name.
He doesn't. But actually, the name he was given is pretty goofy.
I'm going to call him Miami Vice.
Anyway, but the man's name was Oba Chandler.
Oba what?
Oba Chandler. Oba Chandler. Yep.
Okay.
It is believed that the trio boarded the boat with Oba about between 8:30 and 9 p.m., which would be just before the sun is setting on, what is this, May 29th, something like your June.
In Florida.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's June 1st.
Summer.
My apologies.
Close to summer.
June 1st, 1989. Yep. Not that the year has anything to do with where
Yes,
the sun's
the
at.
sun set differently in 1989. Do you remember back in 89
Yes, when the
sun
sun would
used to
stay up
set
longer.
We're pretty
Sorry.
sometimes. It's okay.
Oh, really? The reason why I was saying that isn't because of the nootropics drinks. It's because I'm looking at the words 1989.
I know.
Because I'm taking you now to June 4th, 1989.
So you're skipping ahead a bit here.
A few days. 3 days. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a beautiful sunny Florida morning, and there is a sailboat that is going under the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. Been on that bridge a million times. Okay, not a million, but several. And this bridge, if you don't know, it connects St. Petersburg, Florida, with an unincorporated community at the time of Teresita. And so there are tourists that are on a sailboat, and they are just enjoying the breeze and the warm, day, the sun on their faces. They're just really taking in the moment, and then it all goes to shit.
I feel like I'm on an episode of Bones where these people are out having a good time and they discover a dead body.
Yes, that's where I'm taking you.
I knew it. Trigger alert.
Trigger alert. As they get closer, they see an object. As they get closer to that object, it becomes glaringly obvious that this is a body. So they do call the Coast Guard right away, and the Coast Guard comes out and discovers the body. The crew, my gosh, the nootropics are making it so I can't speak. The crew gently pulls the body from the water, but they had a really difficult time. The body would not come up out of the water. What? Because there was a 30-pound concrete block that had been tied around the body's neck.
What in the actual fuck?
Yes. So,
because at first you assume maybe we had a jumper from the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Now they're realizing that
well,
they've
you don't
got
jump
something.
off bridges with carrying a cement block.
Not
with
usually.
A chain around your neck.
Not a 30-pound one around your neck. I mean, I guess you could
How would you haul it up
realistically, but
yeah.
30 pounds? I mean, you could carry 30 pounds. You wouldn't like it.
Along a bridge? Carry it that far? I guess if you're serious. I don't know.
I guess it depends on where you park. But yeah. But no, I think they're realizing at this point in time, we may be thinking too much into that, but
I think so.
I'm
so sorry.
They're realizing at this point in time that they have something far more nefarious than a jumper, So a crew member cuts the rope and they pull the body onto the boat. Just as they get that body onto the boat,
Find another body.
They're making their way back to land, and there's another radio call that comes in that a second boat has discovered a second body 2 miles north of the first one, and this one's at the St. Petersburg Pier. So just as that crew that goes out to the St. Petersburg Pier is pulling that body up, another call comes in, and a third body has been found about 180 meters east of the second body, so closer to the area.
And was it also with a chain?
All of them.
Cement.
All of them were roped around their neck with a 30-pound concrete block.
So when did they find the third body?
Right after the second one, just as they're pulling the second one out, the third body.
It's like they're just finding these one at a time.
Did you not hear me say?
No, I thought you said the second. I was thinking the first body to the second body. I didn't get from the second to the third.
Yeah. So the third body was only found 180 meters like east of the second body.
Okay, by the pier.
Yes, by the St. Petersburg Pier.
I got you now.
Yep. And so, so second and third were closer together than the first one. Now, they were all found face down. Their ankles were bound together, their hands tied behind their backs with yellow rope. Their mouths were taped shut with duct tape, and they were all nude from the waist down.
Oh.
All three victims were white females, young, as investigators could tell. So now to move a little bit into some of the investigation, because I know you guys already know who these victims are, right? It's the Rogers family. It's the Rogers girls. But looking at it from an investigative standpoint in 1989.
They have to figure out who this is.
Absolutely. They had no ID on them.
Oh.
So they're taken to the medical examiner's office in St. Petersburg, and from there, they were able to determine we're looking at like a 3 to 5 day span of how long they must have been in the water. But given the water temperature and things like that, they kind of had to give themselves some grace for approximate time. They also considered that the decomposition process had, of course, created gases which caused their bodies to float to the water's surface, which was enough to pull up those 30-pound concrete blocks.
Okay.
So
I believe that.
That would really surprised me. I included that because I was like, interesting science there. I guess I wouldn't have thought that it would have, but that's some pretty powerful gases.
The murderer didn't do his research.
Nope, obviously not. Google wasn't available then.
It wasn't.
So in order to find out where the women had ended up in the water, investigators asked researchers at the University of South Florida to analyze the currents for the time period. And
brilliant.
I know. I loved that. And their findings indicated that they had entered in the middle of the bay, not from a bridge or a shoreline. So that narrows down where they're looking as well.
They know it's a boat.
Yes.
They were previously on a boat.
Yep. It wasn't long before state and local media picked up the story. Of course, they want to know, who are you? Like, how this is a whole family, of people. Obviously, no one local is missing is matching these descriptions. So they're like, this has to be a tourist. So on June 8th, 4 days after the bodies were discovered, a maid at the Days Inn Motel in Tampa alerted her manager that room 251 had been untouched for days. The guests who had checked into that room on June 1st, a mother and her 2 daughters, had left their belongings in the room. They had not slept in their beds or used any towels. And the manager of the hotel remembered that he had not seen them since the day that they arrived, and then remembered the reports that he had seen on the news. So he contacts the police. Yes. When the police arrive at the motel, they're informed that the room is registered to Joan Rogers and her 2 daughters. And so at this point in time, they gather all of the evidence that they need to, but now they have to connect with Hal and figure out.
At this point, they don't even know if Hal's with them on vacation and if he's the suspect, and they're going to have to figure all this out.
Yep, exactly.
So they contact Hal in Ohio.
Yes. And they develop the film and they get that information as well. And then they contact Hal, and they did discover that because I'm trying to remember how all of this actually went down. Let me read a little bit further in my notes. No, it doesn't say. Hal had already reported his wife and daughters missing in Ohio.
That was my question, because they should have been home a day or so ago.
They should have. Yep.
And he hasn't heard from them.
There's been no phone calls, the usual phone calls. Yep. So he had already reported them missing. And I didn't write it in my notes, but if I remember right, initially like they didn't have a whole lot because they still don't have her car yet. So they don't have her address. I believe that they ended up calling Ohio, like somebody, like during the registration, something with the registration process of the hotel, they knew they were from Ohio.
Yeah, or
And
they at least had the names. Maybe she held it. They had credit cards in the 80s. Maybe she held it on a credit card and got that information.
Very possible. So they contact the Ohio police, and that's how they find out, like, oh, this guy reported his wife and 2 daughters missing. Yep. So they call Hal and ask him to send dental records.
Oh my God, this poor man.
Hal isn't going to come down and identify badly decomposing bodies.
Right.
Like they aren't confident that they're identifiable from that, given the water and all of that, right? So dental records do confirm that his entire immediate family has been murdered while on vacation in Florida.
Hell, oh my God. He's lost his mom and his brother because of his brother's criminal behavior.
Yep.
And now the love of his life and his 2 beautiful daughters, one of whom has been recently traumatized for 3 years, are murdered.
Yes.
He just lost everything.
Yes.
Everything.
And now is where I'll tell you that I first found the story of these 3 girls being murdered, but then found Michelle's, in going in my deep dive here, that's when I discovered the story of Michelle being molested by her uncle and was like, wait a second.
There's another crime that needs out here.
Yes, all the scope of it needs to be.
You can understand Hal, who, let's be honest, he's a victim here.
Exactly. I thought that it would do a disservice to not give everybody just the totality of what this human went through and what his family was put through. And so the autopsy really narrowed down more information of what their final moments was like. Okay. There was water.
I'm sorry. I want to know cause of death.
Well,
it's drowning, but
it is. They were thrown in the water while alive.
I figured because of the weights, because I don't know that you would take the time to do that to somebody after they're dead.
Correct.
Maybe you would. Mob style kills, they don't want them to float up for a while, but they're smart enough to know they will float up eventually.
Yeah, but
they were alive.
They
drowned.
They did.
They found the evidence of water in the lungs, indicating that they had a pulmonary event.
Yes.
And drowned.
And drowned. So they also are. There's not forensic evidence, given decomposition and being in the water, of the sexual assault, but it is definitely presumed because all of them were still wearing their top. They were naked from the waist down. That's not to say that the current couldn't have taken it, but I think we all know that it did not. Right, it did not.
I bet now with forensic science and techniques, I bet they could determine, even with the decompensation.
I agree.
Decomp, that there was a sexual assault that occurred.
Yep. I agree completely.
So perhaps we're speculating a bit, but no more than law enforcement speculated that this was pretty obvious. It was a sexually motivated crime.
Yep, exactly.
Murder. A sexually motivated murder.
To make things even more sad, first...
How? This family has the worst luck in the entire world.
Well, at first, they look at Hal.
Of course they do. I said he was going to be a suspect.
Yes.
They probably thought he was down there, and he hurried back up to his farm.
But this is where it gets really fun to be a farmer. There are so many people in that small town that saw Hal every day between June 1st and June 4th because he is a creature of habit, as most farmers are. He goes to the same place for breakfast every morning, which he used to meet Joe at.
Yeah.
Because when she got off her 3rd shift, that would be their alone time together. They would meet for breakfast.
So cute. And I love him that he didn't expect her to have breakfast on the table. Instead, she got out of work and he met her.
And
so
they went. They went and had breakfast together.
I'm so sorry, Hal.
Me too. And so he continued to do that while they were on vacation.
Because that's all he knows.
So investigators were able to rule him out super quick.
Yeah, he's got super quick.
But what bothered them is, and the reason why he was on the radar at first, is because of his introversion. They were reading him to be very cold and, unfeeling.
He didn't react wailing, screaming, and with tears.
He didn't. But also, he's still reeling from the first trauma that happened in his family.
It's just utter shock.
So it is. It absolutely is. And but good news is they were able to rule him out very quickly, regardless of how they were reading into what he what his affect was like, right? So the next logical step for investigators was to try to locate their car to give them some sort of insight into where they got into the water at. And they find it parked at a public boat launch along the Courtney Campbell Parkway, which is a mile from the Days Inn motel where they were staying. The car appeared to have sat untouched since June 1st, the last time that it was driven. Inside, detectives found 2 sets of directions written by different individuals, one on a brochure for Clearwater Beach and the other on the Days Inn stationery.
Okay.
So the car and the contents are entered into evidence. The notes are taken into a forensic document examiner. Samples of Joe, Michelle, and Christy's handwriting were provided for comparison, and that's how they determined that the note on the Days Inn stationery was Joe's handwriting. And it read, "Turn right," which is just RT, because she's just shorthanding this.
Got it.
"Turn right on 60, 2.5 miles on right side, alternate before bridge, blue with white."
The boat.
Okay? The boat. The blue with white is the boat. Exactly. Now, the handwriting on the Clearwater Beach brochure, however, matched neither Joe nor any of her daughters. And it read, "Courtney Campbell Causeway, Route 60, Days Inn," telling them how to get to their hotel. The handwritten note found in the car was vital to the investigators because this helped them piece together all right, at some point in time, she pulled off and needed directions to her hotel. And someone walked up to her and invited her then to their boat.
It's too bad they couldn't pull any prints from those.
I know. Now, it seemed unlikely that an unknown person had given them directions to their motel, writing, on the brochure. So they surmised that it may well have been the same person who had given them the directions to the motel that gave them the directions to the boat. They're like, they probably did not stop twice. Like this was more than likely the same person. So this doesn't leave them with a whole lot of information.
No, they still don't have much. Other than they do know the location that the blue and white left from.
Correct. Yep, they do.
And they're assuming it's a boat because that's how they died.
And at this point in time, they have very few leads, but there's someone else that they can interview to get closer. And I'm going to tell you about that person who is also a victim in part 2. Where are you? Looked at the clock. I told you.
I was into it.
It's like it's going to be about an hour.
Okay.
And then now we've got another hour worth of content for part 2.
Okay.
So if you're a Patreon, jump right over to it. If you're not, you can join to listen to it immediately.
Are you bathing me?
Oh, motherfuck. I am going to bathe you.
Race to the bath.
Race to the bath. I don't have my phone on me.
Right
Hold on. I do. I have a South Lake DP bath for you. And I forgot all about it. Thank you for reminding me. And as we're recording this, so we're trying to record ahead because we're going on 4th of July, a little 4th of July hiatus. And so I thought it only fitting to read to you the South Lake DPS Facebook post as they put out their 4th of July reminder. Okay? I just love their writer. He is amazing. And he gives us a lot of good brain bath fodder.
This guy should get paid well for his marketing too.
It's titled Stars and Stripes and Dogs. Stars and Stripes, the city's ginormous fireworks show, is rapidly approaching. So you knew messaging about heat, dogs, and towels were incoming. Yes, towels. Towelgate happens every year when people put down towels to reserve spots, and then people either move them or they blow away. And people call us about towels. I love how they were calling it Towelgate. But that's not today's topic. Nope. The city just put out a video about Stars and Stripes, and in referencing leaving your dog's Jimmy Kibble.
Oh my gosh.
And Harry Potter at home. They said you should really consider doing that. That's a nice way to phrase that, right? Consider leaving your dog at home. It doesn't say you should bring them or not bring them, but to consider the choice. We're more direct. You should leave your good boys at the house. But while you consider it, we've prepared a quick dog monologue, or is it monodog?
Oh, God. Oh, so corny. I love him.
Imagining your sweet angelic pup at home and then imagining your sweet angelic pup at the event. So, your dog at home during the fireworks show. I love my ball. I love my toys. I love my human. I love everything. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Chomp, chomp, chomp. What a wonderful life. Lick, lick, lick. What's a circadia taste like? Chomp. Circadia doesn't taste good. Ah, so nice and happy here. My humans love me so much. Fireworks go off in the distance. Z's for like sleeping, like snoring. Yeah. Love falling asleep to before the 90 days on TLC. Jasmine and Gino are my faves. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Your dog at the fireworks show.
All right.
So many people not sure about this. There's Frank. He didn't sniff me last time, so no sniffing now. Why are there so many other dogs here and so many smells? That kid just kicked me, probably on accident. Panic, panic, panic. What's happening? The ground is searing hot. I miss my bed. Firework goes off directly overhead for 15 minutes or more. Sweet mother of pearl, what horrid acts did I commit in a prior life to deserve these terrifying explosions? Is the world on fire? I'm gonna Ralph. Run away, run away. I can't hear. Why, my maker? Why have you forsaken me?
Oh my God.
So that's pretty accurate.
Oh my God, it's so cute.
Note, we didn't disrespect your dog by having him think he calls you human or human. In some posts do. Because, like some posts do.
They do.
Sorry.
I've seen them where they're it's a meme. The dog's like, human.
Yes.
This is my human.
Yep, exactly. He said, like some posts do. Because that's dumb. He's smart and knows you're his human. So, as his human, please consider leaving your dog at home instead of bringing him to a loud, crowded, explosive fireworks show. If you insist, though, please at least keep him on a leash and watch him like a hawk. Heck, we don't know. Hawks may be there too, which would be scary for them also. Be a great pet owner this week in South Lake and beyond.
That's cute. What a great warning. I love it.
Yes, and it really is a good
It never ceases
reminder.
to amaze me, too. I mean, I know some people can't leave the house without their dogs, but for Christ's sakes, like, have you ever seen a real happy dog at the fireworks
No.
that doesn't freak out or bark or at least or shake?
I've never seen one sleeping through it, I'll tell you that.
Well,
not like the toddlers.
Even when he said the ones, sleeping at home, fireworks in the distance, watching, whatever, my 90-day fiance, bullshit. I mean, mine can hear him in the distance and still start shaking. I'm certainly not going to take him out to deal with it.
Definitely
it's
not.
Mean.
Do you find it ironic that one of my dogs barked right then when we were talking about dogs barking? It's like they know. It's like they know.
Do. It's like we're cheating on them.
Oh,
see?
They do know.
I am not cheating on you. You aren't mine.
And truly, we're just talking about it. We're not actually doing it.
Right. Exactly.
Shoot.
It's premeditation. I'm thinking about petting another dog. Some of my dogs feel like every time I come home from here,
I know.
They start sniffing the hell out of me. They're like, oh my gosh, you smell like female dogs. I have two males.
She smells cute.
Yeah.
Why didn't you take me?
Where's oh God. She smells like my future mom.
Oh my Lord. On that note, everybody, we hope that you still want to go over to part 2.
Yeah,
and
please do.
You can do so in the show notes if you wanted to join Patreon. If not, don't worry. We'll be back next week with the conclusion of this episode. And follow us on social media, interact with us, send us your case suggestions, all of the things, guys.
And until next time, keep it curious.
And keep listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.